What's that sound? It's for amusement only, the EM and Bingo Pinball Podcast. Today I have a special treat. The preeminent bingo repair guru, Jeffrey Lawton, who is also the man who wrote the books on Bally Bingos and United Bingos. He joins me here this morning, as well as Steve Smith from here in town. And we discuss a variety of bingo topics. I apologize in advance for the sound quality. This was my first attempt at using Skype, and it did not, in fact, record Jeffrey's side of the conversation. Now, thankfully, instead of using headphones, I just have it blasting through a speaker, and whatever incidental stuff it picks up on the microphone usually would work out from a recording standpoint. But in this case, that was all I had to go on. So I've ended up amplifying those sections as best I can. And what we're left with is pretty good, but not quite as good as if I had the actual source recording. So, Jeffrey, if you're listening, I'm sorry that your side got all mangled. And you'll certainly hear Steve and I shuffling around and making noise and so forth, just as people do while we're listening to Jeffrey's responses. So, without further ado, here you go.
Hello.
Good morning, Jeffrey. How are you?
I'm fine. Is this the person who I'm speaking?
This is Nick and Steve here in Richmond.
Hey, old friend. How you doing, man?
What's up?
Sorry for the group text stuff the other day. I was just bragging for being at the ball game, you know.
That's okay. I didn't realize you were sending it through group ID. There's getting all kinds of responses from all these people I don't know. And then I finally figured it out.
Yeah, I was bragging because it was a beautiful day at the ballpark. And anyway, how you doing?
Good, real good, real good. So what are we going to talk about?
I was thinking some bingo stuff.
I got some bingo news. I don't know. Have you heard from Dennis Dodell?
No.
He sent me an email. Dennis Dodell sent me an email. When did he send it? Yesterday or day before yesterday. And here, I'm going to read it to you.
Okay.
Let me put my glasses on. No, first thing it was this. Hi, Steve. Sorry I have not viewed your video yet. That's at one of you and Hugh and I.
Oh, you know, that's a great... I still watch that every so often. That's a great video.
I know. Nick's got it. He hadn't watched this thing. I don't know what he's waiting for. God, it's just...
Well, you kind of had to be there.
I guess, but then I had somebody watched it with me, and he said, "Man, this is like bingo pinball porn. It's got so much stuff. It's just it's all 100% bingo."
Yeah.
Anyway, he says, "Hi, Steve. Sorry I have not viewed your video yet. Have had a lot of personal problems, gangs up on me in a short period, but things are getting back to normal, somewhat to normal. I have been trying to get into the storage building of a retired bingo operator for many years, and he finally agreed to let me sell almost everything.
Wow.
I am not making any money on this deal, just taking some games and parts in exchange. Steve, there is so much stuff, it's hard to comprehend. They saved everything, capital letters. Luckily, 90% of it is in storage bins, labeled very nicely, There are quite a few new old stock parts. I have put a few items on eBay, including new old stock Golden Gate front rails. How about that?
Wow.
I know. I was like those reproductions I was making a few years ago. I thought that was the only new stuff out there, unless that, the NIB Silver Sales that was out there about 5, 6 years, 8 years ago.
Right.
There are many dozens of back glasses still in wooden crates. Some are perfect, some not so perfect. NOS, used, nice, used, bad, to horrible reproductions. There are about a dozen new old stock playfields from what I think may be a foreign bingo. I cannot find photos of this game online. A photo of the playfield is attached. Perhaps you have seen it. I haven't. I'll send it to you so you can look at it. I don't see it. It kind of looks bally-ish to me.
It's probably an old 6-card playfield. Does it have what looks like dancing girls on it? Like girls that are in and not dancing girls, but girls that are in like harem costumes. With no rollovers on it. It's got no rollovers.
It's got rollovers. Hold on a minute.
Okay, well it's not a 6-card. Okay, that answers that.
Yeah, it's
It looks like a circus theme or carnival theme.
Yeah, it's carnival-y looking. I'll send it to you. It's very nice.
Yeah, I might recognize it. Yeah.
It's got a tent in the background, so it's carnival theme, I think, and it's got a couple showgirls down along a 20 line.
Yeah.
And it's got the features stuff, so it could be a turning corner or I don't know. I'll send that out to you and others and see what we can find out about the thing.
Okay. Yeah.
And then
I'm not saying I will know it, but I might recognize it.
And then you also, hold on, let me get back to this. Okay, it says, perhaps you've seen it, wait a minute, I cannot find a photo of this game. A photo of the playfield is attached. Perhaps you've seen it. A few Magic screen games, this could sounds like a few Magic screen games there have this playfield installed. So it was reused apparently and plugged into other games. You seem to be in the bingo circle more than I am, and I was wondering if you could put the word out. I would love to see collectors get this stuff. There are about 150 bingos. Most are heavily routed with that crazy metal armor around the whole body of the game. About half of the games are in a basement that has flooded a few times. The games that are on the bottom stacks are probably not salvageable. Shame too. Almost all Magic screen games. There are some nice games also. So if you can, please get the word out. I'm not kidding when I say there are millions of parts here. I will not do any international shipping. I've been burned too many times. I believe there are a few guys who regularly ship internationally to help other fellow collectors out, but I do not know them.
Yeah.
Thanks, and be sure to let me know if you need any parts. I'm 99% sure I have it. Dennis Dodell. And his email, for those listening, is pinbase, PINBASE, @ charter, CHARTER.net. Dennis Dodell. And if folks don't know Dennis Dodell, well, you tell them about him, Jeffrey. Guy's been around. He was in collaborative stuff with Russ.
He's been around for lifetimes.
Well, everybody's been around for a lifetime.
He long precedes me in the hobby. Long.
Yeah, he what was it? It was a pinball trader or something that he started. Wasn't that him?
Pinball trader. Yes.
And he and Russ Jensen collaborated on that repair book back in the 80s. And so anyway, cool guy. I talked to him a few times, emailed a lot. And I remember when I was looking for a Sun Valley several years ago and posted on Rec Games Pinball, he answered me, and I was like checking on him. So I asked you about it, and about him, and your response was He should have wrote the book before I just got to it first.
Well, he had far, far, far more knowledge than I had. I don't know that he had the stories that I had from my youth about my experiences. I don't know that he had that, but he certainly had different stories. And what he offered was actually a knowledge so vast that he, in all honesty, has forgotten more than I probably know even now. And I don't sell myself short by any means, but it is what it is. The man is clearly strong, and I'm not saying that had he written the book, it would have been better or worse than what I did, but it certainly would have been. It certainly would have been different, and it certainly would have been as good for sure. So, but he could have done as good a job with his knowledge, and it would have been fine. But I'm very happy with the way my book turned out, and I'm very happy with the way it's been accepted.
How many copies?
People have raved about how much they enjoy it and how much they enjoy the stories. Most people enjoy the stories more than the knowledgeable part about the bingo references.
Well, that's that kind of human nature storytelling. Everybody gets stories told to him. Tell me a story, Daddy. So you grew up wanting to hear stories, and some people are good at it, and some aren't quite as good. But that said, Dennis had his hands in a lot of stuff. He sent me a few things he's asked for me not to mention or show anybody on some of his bingo research, and so keeping my word, I won't share it. And now, if you told me not to share this, please forgive me, Dennis. I knew that he and Phil Hooper were collaborating on a bingo emulator where they had a processor in it, and basically you get a bingo play field, a real one, and then you have an LED back glass or a TV screen back glass, and then you program in what bingo pinball you want to play. And then it's like your generic. What are these? What are they called? These new pins on a
video pins. Yeah,
video pin with a screen on the play field and a screen on the back on the head.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, the computerized ones. I know what you mean.
Yeah, but this was an actual pinball. It's a real play field. I thought this freaking cool. Now that said, I don't know what kind of market for it.
There's a guy running around the shows now who's doing that. He's got a pinball. It's got a pinball playfield and a back glass, but the whole thing is video.
It's a bingo?
It's a flipper. It's a pinball cabinet, but when you look at the playfield, it's video. And you're playing the ball in a pinball cabinet, and the head is video. It's really kind of a neat concept.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it doesn't work for me.
Right.
I don't have anything against the video replicas of pinball, but there's nothing like the real thing.
Exactly. Yeah, it's but it all contributes to the overall health of the hobby here. So.
Oh, absolutely.
So, Jeffrey, How has the book been accepted? Are you still moving copies?
Yes, this book is. I mean, it's not selling as much as it used to. It's been out since 1999. It's sold into the thousands of copies.
Excellent.
I'm still getting a royalty check every quarter. Not a big royalty check, but it's every little bit helps.
Yeah.
And what thrills me is it's still well received, which is what's important.
Well, it's a great reference. Both of your books are, and I still refer to them quite frequently, especially since I started doing this podcast, I have to, be more on my game about knowing stuff.
I hear that.
It's a wonderful reference and great pictures, and I would encourage everyone to pick up a copy. Do you still have some that you take to the shows that you attend?
Yes. Huh? I always take a case of each book to the York show, and I sell them to anybody who wants them, and I still sell a fair number at the show. The last show I didn't sell a whole lot. I think I sold about 4. But the previous show, the one that I sold, the 2013 show, the one I sold in Malibu Beach, I sold a whole case of books that show. That was really a good show.
Wow, that was.
So they still sell.
That was the one I missed. So you sold that Malibu Beach. That's a good playing game.
Yeah. In fact, it's a sad story. Well, it could have been a sad story. The fellow who bought it lived in Manahawkin, New Jersey.
Okay.
And he gave me a deposit at the show, and then I stayed over. My son lives in Hightstown, New Jersey, so I stayed over. And my son and I delivered the machine to his home, the owner's home, the Monday after the show. And we sat and talked and talked bingos, and the man was a retired welder, and we talked about his avocation, and came back home, and he didn't actually set the game up. He had it in storage. He had a storage building. He kept it in a storage building until he got his basement finished. Well, along comes Hurricane Sandy, which devastated New Jersey coast, as you well know.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, God, this guy's in Manahawkin, which is a suburb of Seaside Heights. Well, you know what happened to Seaside Heights.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, this poor man probably lost everything. And here he had this bingo that he'd been wanting all this time, and it's probably lost everything. And then that comes Christmas time, 2014, and I get a Christmas card from him. And he says, I haven't written, but I wanted to let you know that we made it through the hurricane without a problem. It only skirted us. We lost a few trees, but they were out in the far reaches of my property, so there was no damage to my home. The games are fine, everything's fine, and I just wanted to let you know that. And I was tickled to death that he thought to write me and tell me that.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So, now, do you do repair work for folks still? Do you take on jobs?
Yes.
Is there a well, I guess I should talk a little bit about you. I was going to record a little bumper beforehand, but how long have you been repairing bingos?
I've been repairing bingos since I was 15 years old, which would be 54 years.
Wow.
And he's 340.
Yep. Methuselah and I and dirt are the last bold things on this planet.
So, do you ever work on United games, or do you stick with Bally?
I work on anything electromechanical. I don't limit myself to bingos. I work on flipper pinball machines, Gottlieb's, Williams, Bally flippers, Genko flippers, Keeney flippers, anything that's electromechanical.
Bowling games. You do bowling games?
Yep, Chicago Point bowlers, United bowlers. I'm one of the few insane people that are left that'll work on a bowler, because nobody wants to work on bowlers today because they're so difficult.
You had one given to you that you had sold or something. Tell that story.
Well, the lady gave me the bowler. She had it at her son's house. They asked me to come out and give them an estimate. Well, I came out, and as soon as I saw the bowler, I said, I've seen this bowler before. I gave your mother an estimate probably 6 or 7 years ago. He says, yeah. He says, I know. He says, what my mother said was, if he even comes out to look at it, just give it to him. So I told the lady, I told the young man, I really can't just take it for nothing. I said, let me give you at least $100. He says, okay, I'll take $100. So he gave him $100, and I loaded the bowler. And my plan was to set it up on my back porch, because that was the only room I had that was long enough to set it up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I never got around to it. And I encountered a young fireman who I had done work for before in northern Kentucky. And as I was working on his game, he was mentioning that he was going to build a pinball machine from scratch to teach his son how to work on electromechanical stuff and units and relays and teach him how all this stuff worked. And I said, if you want a project, I've got the perfect project for you. And I said, I'm going to be honest with you. I want to double my money. I want $200 for it, and you got to come and get it. He says, what is it? And I told him it was a bowler. I told him about the bowler. He says, I'll follow you home. He followed me home, loaded it into his truck, gave me my $200, and off he went. And to my knowledge, he and his son went and they got the thing going. I haven't heard anything back from him, so I'm assuming they must have got it going.
Cool.
So that's a good fun story that happened.
So, are you contacted just out of the blue with people looking for bingos or anything of that nature, or do people just come to you when they need help repairing?
I get all sorts of requests. I get people who want to know where to find bingos. I get people who want to know how to fix bingos. How do I get started repairing them? How do I do things? I mean, I get all kinds of inquiries. I get people who tell me, I've got this game, I just got it, I've been trying to get it since I was a young man, and I can't get it working. And first thing I say is, are you handy? And if they say they're not handy, then I say, well, all right, look, what you need to do, where do you live? And if they live prohibitively far away, I said, what you really need to do is you need to load the game into your, either rent a truck or load it into your pickup truck and drive it up here and drop it off. And I'll work on it and I'll call you when it's done and you can back up and pick it up. And I've got two customers that have been doing that, the one on a fairly regular basis. One man from Louisville, Kentucky brought a Sea Island up and I repaired it for him while he waited. And another man in Gas City, Indiana, which is north of Indianapolis, has brought me probably 4 games to go through. And they're older games. He bought me a Palm Beach. Now, the only Palm Beach I had ever seen before I worked on this one was the one that I had pictured in my book that came from Peter Herbert in the Netherlands. Mm-hmm. And this was an actual Palm Beach, and it used to belong to Butch Glotta, the guy, my good friend in Pottsville. You've probably heard me speak of Butch Glotta. Mm-hmm. And I knew it was Butch Glotta's game because I have a video of Butch Glotta's collection, and this game is in that video. Huh. But he sold it. He sold it off to somebody who sold it off to this guy. And I got that game working, and that was a learning experience for me. You never stop learning. I had always said that the first game that had what's called pick and play was roller derby, which is where you have the red, the green, and the blue buttons.
Right.
Well, I was wrong. Palm Beach is the first game that has pick and play. Because Palm Beach has a button for features only and for scores only that you can play.
Really?
I did not know that until I worked on this game. And I have since found out that there's another one. I think it's either Icefrolics or Ice Capades, one of the two, that also has that same feature.
Well, you're talking about Palm Beach. Reminds me of the Lone Williams game, Long Beach. Have you ever come across one of these?
I've seen pictures of Long Beach, but I've never actually seen one. It's a 6-card game. In fact, the pictures of Long Beach that I got from Dennis Odell, who I believe had one. And they still have one.
How about that? I'll have to ask him about it. How about
Long Beach in my book came from him.
Other oddballs? The only other one I can think of is a Universal 5-Star. Now that game is unique. I've seen a back glass at York several years ago, in the flea market, but the whole game was not there. Now 5-Star by Universal It was early 50s. I think it came I ain't getting old, can't remember everything. I think it was dubbed the first inline scoring game. Now, it had very small cards on it. It was like 3x3 cards. I can't remember. It was 5.
I believe that game is. If you were to look at the playfield of that game, it's not like a true bingo, like a specific bingo. It's got holes in it, but it's also got some flipper style play on the playfield. But I don't know.
It does. It's got big wide bands, but it's the unique feature. It's got a real wide saucer to guide the whole ball in the hole, but these are gobble holes,
Yeah.
and the ball falls through. So though you look up at the glass and you see, oh, well, look at that. This would be easy to hit. I think it's even got some star numbers. But you can make the same number over and over. And what good is that going to do? And so it's not as easy as it looks. Interesting game. I've only seen a back glass, but I've never seen the game itself. And so I was just wondering about those couple oddball ones, if you'd run across those since you've been doing it so long. I bet you Dennis has. Anyway,
have you ever seen any of the Gottlieb oddballs, like their horse racing game?
Not the Gottlieb. I've seen a lot of the one ball racing games that are Bally.
Mm-hmm.
I'm familiar with Bally Security. I'm familiar with Bally Turf King.
Mm-hmm.
I'm familiar with Bally Special Entry. I have a friend and customer who has a special entry that I work on occasionally. I worked on a Victory Derby, I think it was called, for a fellow up in Dayton, Ohio. That was interesting to work on. Beautiful graphics, just beautiful graphics, and the game is kind of fun to play once you get the idea of what you're supposed to do, because you need to keep the one ball moving so that you can get past the first couple of rows and get into where you're either in the place or win grouping of holes.
Right.
And then, if you're lucky, you can actually make a winner once in a while. But for the most part, you're betting you shoot the ball, and if you don't shoot it right, it's gone in a bad hole before you realize it. Because those games are set up just like everything else. There's certain holes that are designed to be very easy to go into. And that hole almost never spots as a payoff horse.
It's like they were engineered to make money.
Well, yeah, but they do have a thing where occasionally, if you're betting, see the way these games work, when you bring your ball up, you put a nickel in, and you get a horse selection, you get a ball. So if you bring the ball up and set it before the plunger, you can put another nickel in, and you can increase your odds, but it will also change your horse selection. And occasionally what will happen is all the horses will light. Now, what that means is that you can't lose.
That means you've been playing really badly up to that point, huh?
Well, not necessarily. You got to remember, you only get one ball. So, if you're hitting a good score every 20 nickels,
mm-hmm.
you're doing okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you're hitting a winning score every 10 nickels, you're on fire. And if you're hitting a winning score every 5 nickels, well, you've achieved Dodge status.
These things are difficult to play because they don't nudge well.
No, they don't nudge well. There's no legs on them. They're
yeah.
They are literally floor to top cast.
Well,
so it's like playing a dresser drawer.
I really like the coin entry on a lot of those, where it's just like the slot machine hopper that you throw money into.
A little scoop.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
What are you talking about? The payout mechanism?
No, the intake where you put your nickels in.
The coin slot.
Yeah.
Speaking of coin,
most of these games either had a triangular coin slot that was like you would like a backward teapot, Or you had a slide, like the Victory Derby that I worked on actually had a slide. You push the slide in, and it would recycle, and it would cycle the features in the back. But the other ones, they had a huge nickel coin mechanism.
Well,
you're right. Those are more neat than the conventional ones.
Now you were talking about coin slots. Weren't you writing for Coin Slot magazine at some point?
No, I wrote the first magazine I wrote for was Pin Game Journal, which was Jim Shelberg's magazine, which is still being published, by the way. He just sent the latest issue out covering the last Pinball Expo.
Yeah, we just got that one.
Yeah, I don't think he sent an issue out since he sent the calendar out, and then this is the first issue he sent out since the calendar.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I got an email from somebody. I haven't received any follow-up on it, but somebody has I guess bought the rights to Game Room magazine from Kevin Steele, and it looks like they're going to try to start publishing Game Room magazine because he was looking for subscription purchases. And I sent him an email back asking for more information on who he was, where he fits into the hobby, and told him that I had supported both Tim Ferrandi and Kevin Steele in those magazines when they were being published by those two gentlemen respectively.
Now, didn't you write a few articles for Game Room?
I didn't hear you.
Didn't you write a few articles for Game Room magazine?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. I'm confused.
The way I looked up with Tim Ferrandi in Game Room magazine, I called Pin Game Journal for something, and no, I called Tim Ferrandi to renew my prescription, and I got him on the phone, and I told him who I was, and he said, I know you. He says, I've edited some of your stories for Jim Shelberg. And that was how I started writing for him. He said, do you have anything that you could let me have that would not be in conflict with what you do for Jim Shelberg so that I could publish some of your work? Because I really like your writing style. And so the agreement that I had with him was Shelberg would get all my pinball stuff and Ferranti would get everything else. Bowlers, trade stimulators, slot machines, anything that I worked on that was non-pinball, he got it. And so, yes, I wrote for both of them. And I wrote extensive articles. I wrote many articles for both of them.
And you write well.
Agreed.
Well, I thank you. I try. The trouble is with my style of writing, I tend to be too detailed. And I'm writing on a subject that a whole lot of people aren't interested in today because nobody's taken the time to understand electromechanical technology, and that's kind of a shame. Mm-hmm. But it's clearly a dead art. It's literally a dead art. I have customers that are graduate electrical engineers that have electromechanical machines, and they call me.
Ha! This reminds me of when you sold the bingos to the rocket scientist.
That's right.
That Acapulco that was written up on Hugh Cohn's site, and he bought that Acapulco. You delivered it to him. A rocket scientist with a bingo pinball hobby. Man, that's killer. Could he work on it?
And I'm still in contact with him. He still has the game, and it's still working. I've been to his home. I've been to his home twice since he had the game, and spent time with he and his family. And shared a couple of meals together, and talked pinball. He has a phenomenal history of the Valley Corporation and people in Valley.
Huh.
He knew everybody in Valley who was anybody other than Don Hooker. He knew Tony Bricado. He knew. I mentioned Tony Bricado because I knew Tony Bricado, and that was a name that was. But he talks extensively about a man from Valley, and I can't think of his name right now, but he just recently passed away, and he still keeps in contact with his family. but at one time he had the blueprint schematic diagrams for all of the mixer wiring, mixer 1, 2, 3, and 4 for all of the games. He had all of those archived.
Wow.
And I had never even seen those. I didn't even know they existed, but he had them. And Hurricane Katrina, which ravaged Mississippi, he lost everything.
Oh man.
And he lost everything. And it was a cute story. He contacted me. He lived in, I want to say, either Long Branch or Long Beach, Mississippi. I think that's the exact name of it. But he called me after Katrina when he was in the process of almost rebuilding his life. And that's how he came to buy the Acapulco and the Bounty. But he was telling me of all this stuff he had, and all of this written memorabilia that was literally lost. I mean, literally sucked back out into the Gulf of Mexico, and wasn't even able to salvage any of it. And the other thing he lost was the copy of the book I had, that I had sold him.
Oh.
And so we talked a little bit, and I didn't think anything about it. And Carol, my wife Carol, was still alive then, and I said, I'm going to send Gary a new copy of the book. And the other thing that he said that he lost was he used to save my Christmas cards. A lot of people save my Christmas cards from year to year. And he had saved my Christmas card from the year he bought the book. Well, I went back into my computer, and lo and behold, I found that Christmas card. Now, I've since lost it because that particular computer, the hard drive crashed. But that's another story. But anyway, I found that Christmas card. I reprinted it, and I got a copy of the book out. And I wrote in the book, I said, to Gary Marshall, my pinball friend in Mississippi, you may have lost everything in Hurricane Katrina. This is something you didn't lose. Please take this with my compliments. And I signed it and dated it and sent it off. Well, maybe 3.5 months goes by. I don't hear anything. I don't hear a word. I don't get a phone call. I don't get, no acknowledgement. I said, well, gee, maybe he didn't get the book. So I called on the phone. So his wife answered the phone. And I said, hi, I'm Jeffrey Lawton from Cincinnati. She said, oh, you're the one. I said, I guess I am. Is there something wrong? No. She said, when that book arrived, she said, Gary broke down and cried. He said he just couldn't believe somebody would do something like that. And he said, he's been wanting to call you, but he didn't know what to say, and he didn't. But he was just so thrilled that you thought enough to do that meant so much to him. And I thought that was nice. So I told him, I said, please tell him to call me when he gets a chance. I said, I'd love to talk about games and whatnot. And that was what led us to culminating the deal where he bought the Bounty, and he bought the Acapulco.
Huh.
Cool. Well,
but he's a neat guy. Literally brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Didn't he give you a tour of the where they were making or rebuilding or whatever the rocket?
He works for the Stannis Space Center in Gulfport, Mississippi. You can't even the place. If you try to go and look at Mississippi on Google Maps, you can't even see this place, but it's huge. And I normally carry like a pocket knife, when I go to shows and whatnot. And he said, I'm going to give you a choice. Do you have a weapon? I said, well, yeah. I said, I normally carry a pocket knife. He said, put it in your glove compartment. He says, you can't have it on your person. Because you're not allowed to have any weapons at all. And he says, they might not search you, but he said there's metal detectors everywhere you go, and you will set them off, and you won't even know that they're there. So of course I left my pocket knife in the car, like he said, and we went off, and like you could go into an area, and there would be like he could go into an area, but I had to stay. And then a guard would come along, and the guard would check me out, ask me a couple of questions, and then he'd say, okay, and he'd take like a thumbprint or something, and he'd look at my identification, and he'd say, okay, fine, you can go in. But yeah, they had, the time that I went, they had one of the engines from the Challenger, one of the Challenger spacecrafts. I don't know if it would be Atlantis or Challenger, but I don't remember the name of it. But it was one of the engines from the actual spacecraft, and they had it there, and they had it in a big, basically a motor mount, if you will. And what they were doing was they were testing it. And he was saying that when they fire that engine, they got to, because of the sound, so they got to actually literally almost close off the whole area. And it's like if you want to watch this test, you got to be like 300 or 400 yards away. Otherwise, the sound is deafening. Even with ear protection, the sound's deafening. And I actually saw this engine. Didn't see it fire, which I was happy to do, but I actually saw it. It was amazing.
Wow.
They got to cool those engines with some kind of chemical out here, liquid nitrogen or something.
I think it is liquid nitrogen, and he talked about that, and you know he said testing the engine on the ground where the air is so dense, it takes about 50 times the amount of liquid nitrogen to keep that engine cool as it does in space where there's no atmosphere.
Wow.
That's a big cookout.
Yeah.
And he said the pumps themselves that keep the liquid nitrogen flowing while they're testing that engine are an engineering marvel in themselves, aside from the engine and everything else that's going on.
Well, all that said,
I'm thinking, I think I'm a very smart guy. I got news for you. I don't know nothing.
well, could he fix his bingo? Was he?
He could do something. I mean, he could do units. He could do relays. He could do adjustments.
Okay. Well.
He was able to change. He was able to change motors and change parts and whatnot. He could align the magic screen, which a lot of people can't do that, but he could align the magic screen. He's
good.
He was handy.
Yeah. Troubleshoot. Yeah. Well, I would hope so. At least get something out of a rocket scientist. Yes.
Yeah. but so many times, rocket scientists are, they're intelligence-wise, they're so big. But as far as adaptability, being able to dexterity with their hands do what their minds are capable of doing, their fingers won't do the work.
Yeah. I just thought that was a pretty cool story.
Oh yeah.
I was going to talk about when I talked Nick into going to the York show for the first time. And he got up there late. He couldn't come up first day or whatever it was. And he finally arrives that evening. And you and I and your son and daughter-in-law, I can't remember if your daughter was at that one or not. And Nick hunts us down and we're having dinner at Ruby Tuesdays or something. And that was the first time you guys met. Believe it or not,
right.
If you can recall that.
Yep.
It was in a restaurant. And then I think, it was probably the day before the show. He didn't come up. I can't remember. Anyway.
It was that Thursday night.
It was Thursday night, so you did get to both. And then, like in the morning, I traded a machine and set it up in my hotel room. And as usual, we're back together again at the end of the when the show's over in the evening. I'd set that pinball up in my hotel room, and I got the newest guy I know in pinball and one of the oldest guy I know in pinball, both in there, working on my game. And I just thought that was the coolest thing.
Meanwhile, you're sitting back and
drinking beer and eating
having
pizza. A beer. Will y'all hurry up and fix my game? I want to play. I got pictures of 3 of us together. I have to send that out.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty. I got a kick out of that. And I had told, I don't know if you listened to podcast that Nick did with me. It was rambling on and on, but I had told Nick after he got bit, I said, we need somebody to carry this on. And so he's doing it in new ways, from the old, he's got you on some kind of Skype thing now. We could be seeing your ugly mug if you were set up on the other end. But this is the new the new age. We go from electronic mail, from mechanical mail, of the old days, and which is still, I don't think will ever go away, but this is what we're passing stuff on to. Maybe we can get Nick involved in that bingo emulator thing. Who knows? It's just some random thoughts that are applicable to this topic, I thought.
Yeah. It's pretty great, the reaction that I've seen so far. There have been quite a few people who've come out and said that this has ignited their interest in getting a bingo and wanting to play. There's a lot of folks my age and younger that I had never heard of a bingo until I met Steve, and it's pretty interesting, the trajectory here. It's only been a few years, and now I've got 3 in my house. So
yeah, he just got ticker tape.
Numerous stories that I have about bingos and people not being used to bingos. I'm at the Pinball Expo. This is in 1999.
Mm-hmm.
And this fellow comes by, and he's a flipper pinball guy. And I don't know that he's one of, there's a lot of guys in there that are celebrities. And I don't know that this guy was one of the celebrities, but he acted the part. If he wasn't, he certainly acted the part. But the humor of it is, I'm playing game, which is a single deck scoring game. I need the 22 for a 72 game 4 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And he walks by and he says, that's not pinball. And I looked at Steph and I said, what are you talking about? He says, that's not pinball. And I said, well, why do you say that? Well, he says, all you do is shoot the ball and watch it roll, and then when it falls into a hole, you make what you make. I said, well, okay. I said, I can see why you would say that, but let me ask you a question. I said, when you're playing your fancy schmancy flipper game, what do you do when the ball's not rolling right? Like, what do you do? I mean, you just flip the ball and let it go blindly where it wants to go until it falls into the out hole and you're done? I said, that's no more pinball than what you think this is. No, he says, it's much more complicated than that. He says, you've got to jock the machine, and you've got to hit the flipper with certain intensity. So you either hit it real hard or real soft, or you got to feather it. Sometimes you got to hit the ball before it gets to the flipper, so it goes to right angle. I said, okay. I said, well, that makes sense. I said, now I want you to see something. I said, I need to make this 22. I want you to watch me play it, and then see if you change your mind. I shot the ball out. And the ball comes around, well, it's coming down the left side, which, of course, is not good for the 22. So as the ball comes over, I forget the exact pin, but I hit the ball when it got on a certain pin. And so it starts bouncing around. And I didn't touch it again for the rest of the play of the ball. And it bounced around, and the ball's right in 22. And he says, you just stood there and watched. I said, you just stood there and let the ball roll. I said, you weren't watching. I said, when I first shot the ball, I wanted to shoot it left to right. I shot it right to left. I was on the wrong side. I had to hit the ball when I was up above the number 1 to change the roll. I said, I only had to hit it once. Once I did that, the ball was set on the proper trajectory, and luckily, it went down and made the 22. I said, I can't guarantee that I would have made it, but had I not hit it, there was no chance for me to make it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he said, boy, he says, I got to give this some thought. He walked away, scratching his head, and said, I got to give this some thought. I took a gotcha.
Well, did he come back?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, well.
Well, that's one of the great things at York. You're always pretty handy to explain the features to new players that are coming up. And it's always good to see the folks that come up and give it a whirl.
I get 3 types of players at York. I get the old, I get old experienced bingo players like Steve and like I and many others who know bingos, have grown up with them, and they love the memorabilia of seeing games again. And then I get youngsters that have never seen a bingo,
mm-hmm.
and I'll say to them, would you like to learn how to play this? And sometimes they'd like to. Other times they say, no, go away. It's just too complicated. I don't want to be bothered. But the third type of player I get is the individual who walks up and they'll look at the game, and they look at it and they put their hands on it, but they don't actually play it. I remember this one young girl was up there, and I had the game I had there at that time was surf club. I had surf club in one of my others, and she's going up to this surf club, and she's kind of feeling the wood and all. And I said, "Would you like to play this game?" No. She says, when I was a little girl, my father had one of these in his store, and I'd never seen one until now. And she said, I'm just trying to remember, is this even the same game?
Huh.
And I said, look, push the button, try it. So she pushed the button. And as she played, she just pushed one game. I said, she just played a straight game. I said, now shoot the ball and see. And as she played the game, it all came back to her.
Wow.
And she said, yeah. She said, I remember this. And for the rest of the show, I mean, she played maybe one or two games, and then she was gone. And then in the course of the afternoon, I would see her. She'd come back to the game, and she'd play 3, 4, 5 games, walk away. Come back, play 3, 4, 5 games, walk away. And at the end of the show, I think it was the Saturday, because in those days they used to have the show. They used to run the show Sunday. They used to run the show Sunday afternoon. But this was on Saturday. And she came back at the end of the Saturday before she went. She said, I'm so glad that I stopped and looked at this game. She said it meant so much to me once I understood what I was looking at. And she said, I can't thank you enough for coming over and making me play it and making me remember it. It was wonderful. I got a kick out of that.
Yeah, that's pretty.
But I get a lot of people like that. They capture their youth.
Mm-hmm. So, let me ask you: Do you have plans for this year's York? Do you know what you might bring?
Yeah, I'm going to come. I don't know what I'm going to bring yet. I'm going to bring if the Sun Valley that I had last year doesn't sell, I'm going to bring that back. The main reason I even have that game is to take to the show. If it does sell, then I'll probably bring Nightclub, and of course the roller derby's gone, the Malibu Beach is gone. So I'll probably bring Sea Island and Nightclub, or Sea Island and Sun Valley. I may bring Lido again. I mean, I like bringing Lido. It's I actually probably should bring Lido, because Lido, it's just like Steve's bikini. It's not as cosmetically nice, but it's a good player, and people like that. People like that security game feature.
Mm-hmm. And
so,
Lido is your favorite game, correct?
Lido is my favorite game. Yes.
I thought there was some guy from Chesterfield down here near Richmond that bought that Lido at York a couple of years ago. Whatever year it was, I brought my Golden Gate. Maybe he didn't follow through.
He never came through.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I had a feeling it could be something. I read him properly, I thought. Anyway.
Well, he offered me $200 less than what I was asking for the game. Now, in all fairness, I should have took that. But I wasn't that crazy about selling the game, because it's such a good player. That's the problem. The game is such a good player that I'm just going to hold my price on it. If it doesn't sell, I'll just bring it back.
Yeah.
You had done a little bit of cosmetics on it, but you don't care for doing cosmetic work on bingo.
Well, I don't do the quality of cosmetic work that you do. I mean, when you do a game, it's beautiful. Your cosmetic work on games is, I mean, I would say it's one of the 3 best that I've ever seen. Without a doubt, the best is John Langbeck out of Maryland.
Really? Now, let me ask you this: Did he make
you and Hugh are tied for second best?
Well, did John make new foot rails? No.
Steve's fishing for compliments over here.
Man, no. I've been with you and seen his stuff.
I say he didn't make new foot rails. He may have made new foot rails when he had to.
I
don't know. But he did the same thing as Hugh does. He would change every leather clutch. He would change every leather clutch in the game and put all brand new leather clutches in.
And that said, It ain't
I
perfect.
don't do that. That's a little extreme for me.
Here's what it is. You know, it's a pretty looking game, and if the freaking thing's something's gonna mess up on the inside at some point anyway. You know, and that's just part of owning any electromechanical game.
But see,
You know.
my Vito, when I did my Vito, I do what I call feather painting. I feather in the colors that are originally there, and I match as close as I can, but then I feather it in so it doesn't look like it's been painted. It looks like it's all original.
Yeah, it looks. Yeah, it's kind of.
I mean, it looks worn, but not. It's worn, but not ruined.
Correct.
Right.
It's not crisp, clean paint, and then beat up on the other part. You do a beat up repair. It looks good. It looks good. You can't tell it's been.
But I like a game.
Just looks
I
old.
like a game with personality. I like a game to have personality, and that's the only way you can have a game that's going to have personality.
I'm with you, man. I get it. Let me see. Something else I was going to ask you about weird games. You do, how about we touched on horse racing game? Do you do many of those?
No, I don't do many, and I get calls. I get people that want me to work on games like Turf King and Futurity, and I usually turn them down.
How about
I turn them down only because it's not fair for me to take the kind of money it's going to take to get that game working when you can't sell it. You literally can't sell it. There's absolutely no market for those games.
There isn't.
They're beautiful games, though.
They're beautiful games, but you have to find. The only way you're going to sell that game is if you find a person who wants it.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll give you a perfect example. I've got a guy in Texas. He's madly in love with the Tahiti, the Valley Tahiti, which is a 20-volt bingo.
Yep.
Oh God!
Mystic Line.
He can get a new in the box one if he wants.
He had well, he can find one. But here's the humor. He was the one that I told you the story that he flew me down to Dallas Fort Worth, put me up in a hotel to repair his Tahiti. And it cost him 3 times what the game was worth to have me come down there and do that. He didn't care. He wanted that game working. So we got to work. Now he gets a flood. And this happened within the last 3 months. He gets a flood.
Man.
And his Tahiti's ruined. On repair.
Oh my gosh.
He wants another Tahiti. So his fellow down there, Bob Herbison, who was a very well known, highly respected man in the pinball hobby in the Texas area, calls me, wants to know if I know where there's a Tahiti. Well, I did know one. So I called my customer who bought a Tahiti from me, told him that I had a chance to get a good sale for him on his Tahiti if he wanted to sell it. So he turns around and I said, can I give Bob Herbison your number? So I did. Bob Herbison sends me an email back and he says, I made contact with this guy. His son was talking to me. They want like $3,700 for this Tahiti, which is outrageous. And I wrote back to him and I said, it is outrageous. And I said, you don't walk away from that. I said, it's a nice game, but it's not worth that. Walk away from that. Well, I called Hugh. I said, have you got a Tahiti? Yeah, he said, I've got one in my personal collection. I said, well, you don't want to sell it. Well, he says, I might sell it. I said, here's the story. So I explained to him who this guy is. And Hugh knows Bob Herbison. He doesn't know him as well as I do, but he knows him. And I said, Bob's working for this guy, trying to help him out. And Hugh said, you tell Bob to call me, we'll make a deal. So Bob wrote me back and he said, I talked to Hugh, this is how much he wants for his game. What do you think? And when I saw the price, I said, buy this game before Hugh wakes up. Because I said, he's doing you a big favor, probably because he knows you and he knows that I know you and that we're all friends, and he's basically doing your customer is reaping the benefit of our mutual friendship. So
And if it's
take the deal.
And if it's one of Hugh's personal games to boot, That said, I haven't heard much love for that game. There were 5 of them. I think Keith Nicola had 5 new in the box ones. This was
I believe it.
6 or 7, 8. I don't remember how long ago. And
Stories
was
are-
having a hard time selling them.
Well, they're not a real desirable game. They're 40 coin games, okay? They're 20 holes. So right off the bat, 20 holes with the star numbers, they're a sucker's game because you can't make 5 in a row unless you get
The
all
star.
4 numbers in the cards and the star.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you get the number in the star first, it's a wasted number unless you get all 4 of the others. And there's no extra balls. You can't buy an extra ball.
Huh.
So you're playing 5 balls and that's it.
Yeah, I hadn't heard much love for
it's
it.
a big game. It's a big game.
But he liked it.
Come on now. Some people like them, and this guy in Dallas. I mean, he's a multi-millionaire. He loves this game, so he doesn't care. He wants it. But it's humorous because my customer, who was the first person I called, he mentioned that he would really like to sell that to Edie, and I said, well, I said, God damn it, I said, you had your chance. I said, you had your chance to get a sale. I said, you blew it. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, you asked a price that was, you basically, I told you the guy had money, but I also told you he wasn't stupid and he knew kind of what the thing should be worth. And I said, you blew it. And I said, I got to tell you, in my lifetime, I've only seen 2 people who really wanted it to Tahiti. This guy in Texas and you. So in other words, that's what I basically said to him, like, that game's going to be in your estate.
Oh, for heaven's sake. Jeffrey, how many bingos you got now?
I got probably 20 total. I've got 17 or 18 set up and running, and I've got another 3 in the garage. I've got Sea Island in the garage, which is running, but it's damp, but it's broken down. I've got Next in the garage, which is running, but it's broken down, and I've got a county fair in the garage, which I have not restored yet, which I've had for Christ's sake, I've had that for 30 years and I haven't touched it.
You still got your original first bingo yacht club, wasn't it?
Yes, sir. I still have that. Yep. Yep. And it's right in the same spot that it was when I took the picture in the book back in the 80s.
Look, I've been talking about doing this for a while, and I want to set it up. I want to come out, do a video at your place, spend a night. If you don't have bed bugs, we'll get drunk, tell a story.
I don't have.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we can do that.
And
one thing you'll get a kick. One thing I don't mean to touch. One thing you'll get a kick out of. I'm running 5 to 6 pinball nights a month.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 fellows that come out every week on Wednesday night and play pinball.
Nice.
And then I have 1 fellow who comes out once a month and plays pinball. And we do exactly what you're saying. We play pinball, we drink beer, we smoke cigars, we tell stories, and
all right.
It's a good time.
I got a big project after I should finish up middle of July, and I would like to see if I can time that so I can come out for one of those sessions. And we'll bring a video camera like we did down in Yukon. But I also want to time it so we can go to a baseball game one of those nights too.
Yeah,
so
that would be nice.
You get
if I've got
couple nights.
I can get Rich tickets and we can go. Yeah.
Okay.
Right now.
All right. I'm thinking mid-July. Just as a side note, you want to go, Nick?
I'd love to. If my work will let me.
Well, my boss said I can do it. I work for myself. Okay, cool.
So, Jeffrey, do you have flipper games in your collection as well?
Yes, I do. I have a Dudley Contest, which is a 1957 4-player.
Mm-hmm.
I have a Valley Captain Fantastic, which is the 1956 Elton John pinball, and I have I don't know the year, but the first high speed, the first Williams high speed, the first System 11, it was the first game that had letters on the digital scoreboard.
Yeah.
I have one of those. In fact, I just bought that back.
Okay.
That's another funny story. I sold that to a fellow 20 years ago. 20 years ago. Because I had a problem where the game, I'd be playing the game, and it would just lock up.
Mm-hmm.
Just, you know how digital games are, it would just lock up.
Yep.
Turn it off, turn it back on, it would come back into play, and would lock up. Well, I'm good friends with Clay Harrell out in Detroit. I don't know if you know Clay Harrell or not. He's as far as pinball technicians go, he's the best I've ever seen.
Okay.
Remind me to tell you about me meeting him.
Okay, so now I go to Clay Harrell and I tell him I'm having this problem. Now this time he was still associated with Margaret's Museum, so he had all this technical data on Margaret Museum's website. He says, go up on this website, go to this section, print this, about 40 pages, but it talks about everything on Williams System 11s that can go off. Mm-hmm. Okay. Long story short, it turns out what it was the diodes on the coils, because the game was getting old, and were starting to come loose and starting to come on solder.
Mm-hmm.
So as I read through this, I went and I resoldered every single diode, every single diode and every single coil, and the game was playing fine. But from the time I resoldered that, every time I played the game, I had that anxiety. When's it going to stop? It drove me nuts. It drove me nuts.
I've been working on a System 11 myself, a police force, and it had caught on fire at some point in its life. Yeah, so I've been rebuilding everything, and I've got that same anxiety every time I fire it up.
This reminds me of back in the old vinyl record days, when if you had a record, and it had a skip on it. And you get used to hearing that song with a skip, and then you hear it on the radio, and it gets to that point where your skip was, and it doesn't happen. And it's like anticipation up to nothing. That's what that reminded me of. But yeah, I met Clay Harrell at Pinball Expo, 25th Pinball Expo, and that's back when he was doing his this old pinball
DVDs.
Oh, with Norman Shaggy. He was doing the Norman Shaggy video.
Yeah, I don't know if he was still doing them or he was doing the podcast. He was like the first guy to do podcasts, and he was interviewing all the designers and stuff. Yeah. And I got to meet a bunch of designers at that show too. But I come across Clay at some point. He had his head in the back of a single player EM up along the wall. And I had this idea for what Nick is doing now. And hell, what we're doing right now was interviewing bingo people. And he looked at me like I was crazy. He said, "No, I don't like bingo pinballs. Bingos aren't pinballs." It's just like I offered him a fork full of manure or something. And
that guy said to me in Expo, the same thing. Not really pinball.
Yep.
I don't know. But go ahead.
Yeah, and so he was a bit coarse about it. That said, later on, I was in the elevator with Steve Kordak and some other gal, and Clay got in the elevator, and I was talking with Steve because Steve Kordak, I'd seen him and had dinner with him one night, and so we were chummy. Plus, he wouldn't let me call him Mr. Kordak, and so it was Steve, and Clay came in something. I was talking with Steve Kordak about bingos. And if he had anything to do with that Long Beach stuff, and he didn't. And Clay got in, and I said, "Yeah." And we're talking about bingos or something you don't want. He said, "They're not that bad." So he's like trying to redeem himself in front of one of the kings of pinball. I got a kick out of that, but I don't think he. There's a lot of guys that like for electromechanical games, a single player there's so much less to fool with, and I get it. I understand it. And I guess that's his perspective and why. But we're in another world, man.
I mentioned Bob Herbison earlier. If you know anything about Bob Herbison, he's very heavily involved in the Fort Worth pinball show. In fact, they just had it, I think, back in February or March down in Texas. And he's very deeply involved in that. And he has a marvelous collection of old Gottlieb flipper games. They're just amazing. But what I'm getting at is he is not averse to new things. And he contacted me. He recently purchased a Lido. And he wanted to know things to look for. And so I gave him certain things to be cautious about and whatnot. And the guy wanted what I thought was a lot of money at the time. Well, Bob ended up buying the game for like half what the guy said he wanted. But there was a few problems in the game. And one of the problems turned out to be that the magic screen was out of alignment. And he said, I can't get the magic screen to center. He says when the playfield goes back, it goes so far and it just keeps cycling back and forth and it won't stop. And I said, all right, it's out of time. So I explained to him how to do it. So he said, well, do I have to pull the chain on? No. You have to go. So I explained to him how to do it. And maybe 3 or 4 days goes by, and he says, he says, listening to you tell me how that worked, it's almost like you were inside that game looking at it. Well, I said, Bob, I've done it so many times. It's kind of, that's kind of like what it is. As I'm explaining it to you, I'm seeing it in my mind's eye. Yeah, I'm doing it right along with you.
Well, this is part of the storytelling. You're a good storyteller. This is a good writer. This is, you can convey and project images verbally. It's good.
But but the point is, here's a guy who's a flipper guy. No question, he's a flipper guy, and very well known in the hobby as a flipper guy. But he understands bingos, and he likes the style of bingo because it's a different kind of play. It's a different kind of play. And it's the same thing. Josh Kaplan, the fellow, the pin geek that goes to all the shows and takes the pictures and whatnot.
Yeah.
He'll see me playing a flipper game every once in a while, and he'll say, "Oh, here's Jeff Lawton playing a flipper game," and I'll say to him, "Josh, I said, I'm not one-dimensional. I can do other things. My mama taught me how to read. I can do other
things." For heaven's sake, the Allentown show adjourned yesterday. I don't think it's going on today. And he posted up a couple of his normal videos of a tour of the place, and they showed a shoot-a-line with a different back glass on it.
Saul wrote me about that. I knew that game was there. Saul wrote me about that. He was thinking about buying it. But tell me more. Tell me more about it.
Well, I just saw it. It had a unique back glass, but although the name was the same, 28 holer.
It was. Well, is this the one that had single coin on the back glass?
Maybe that's what it said.
It was. From what I saw, it was a conversion of shoot-a-line, but it had the replay register. So apparently single coin was kind of a generic one that they used on those Ohio dime games where they'd have the lighted scoring.
Do you know what the story is behind that?
I've read the book.
Where that came from?
Go for it.
No, it's not in my book.
Oh, okay.
Well, I learned this from a fellow in Paris, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
The story, and I had it confirmed by Butch Blada.
Okay.
The story behind the single coin backlash is that some operator or some group of operators got together and they produced a huge number of these single coin backlash, and they're 6-card games.
Yep.
With the either the lot of fun motif where the points go across the top,
Mm-hmm.
or the fun way where the little barrels go down the side,
Mm-hmm.
or the barrel of fun where it looks like a barrel where the thousands go across and the hundreds go like in a circle around the barrel.
Right.
The point I'm making is all of these single coins were created with one thing in mind. To make it appear that the game would only take a single coin to operate. And they modified all of these games, that they put these single coin backdashes on, they modified all of these games so that when you put a quarter in, it automatically puts all 6 cards up.
Okay.
Now, Bush Goddard told me that he said in Pennsylvania, you can't have a multi-coin game where it takes more than one coin to play.
Okay.
But he says you can play multiple credits because you treat the credits like earned points.
Right.
So even though it says it's replays, you're not really doing replays, so to speak.
Gotcha.
But I said, well, what about the Ohio Dining game? Does that qualify? He says no, because he said if you don't have any points on there, then you've got to put 6 coins in to get the 6 cards. I said, you're right.
Huh. Okay.
So I thought to myself, well, what happens? You're playing a 6-card game with single coin. You drop your coin in, you get all 6 cards. You make 3 in a row.
Right.
So you got 4 credits with 1 card. So you push the red button 4 times, and you got 4 cards. Now, what if you want to get cards 5 and 6? Well, you got to put a coin in.
Yeah, that's true.
You had to put a coin in if you had no credits. So basically, you won nothing.
Oh, that's interesting. So it wouldn't treat them as a full reset where it would give you all 6 for each red button press?
No, not for a credit. No, when you play 2 credits, you get 1 credit off, you got 1 card.
That's crazy. So this one was really neat. It had a dollar bill validator on the front. It took $1 and $5 bills. I'm wondering how in the world that was wired in.
Well, that was
Actually, that's not as difficult as you might think. I know it sounds crazy to say, but that's not as difficult as you might think, because see, those dollar bill acceptors, they work where what the dollar bill acceptor does, it's a digital device.
Right.
But what it does is it puts out a
Pulse.
It's the equivalent of a contact closure, not a pulse, but the equivalent of a contact closure, and you can put those 2 leads, and of course, where you would normally put a blade switch.
Okay.
And it actually puts, like if you put a quarter in there, it puts 5. You call them pulses, but they're actually contact closures.
Mm-hmm.
And they will energize as if it was a relay. You can use that and actually throw 5 games on the meter, or 100 games on a meter. Now it's a little tricky. The game's got to be set for a quarter of play to make that work.
Okay. Yeah. I could see that. So you wouldn't get 20 plays for $1 if it was set to nickel play.
4 plays.
Right.
Yeah, you get 4 plays.
Okay.
And you get 20 plays for $5.
Gotcha. Huh.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. So you do have to rectify, though. You got to have DC at the.
You got to have a DC transformer. You got to have.
Yeah.
You got to have plus or minus 12 volts, plus or minus 5 volts, and you got to have the step down for the to make the still valve to work.
Yeah.
And then you can also use they have these electronic coin rejectors. I don't know if you've seen them.
Yeah.
You slide it, you put a coin in.
Yep.
Okay, those will also work on a bingo, because what you can do is you can put the 48 volts AC into that if you know what the 2 leads are that normally operates the coin lockout.
Yeah.
And as long as that coin lockout is energized, it turns that acceptor on and it'll take money. And as soon as the coin lockout releases, it won't take money anymore. It returns the money.
That's pretty fascinating.
So your electronic projectors, if you could, I've got one, but I've never taken the time to figure out which wires are where I put the
48 volts, huh?
to get it to work.
Yeah. Huh. Well, that's funny. I was speculating on that on last night's show about how that bill validator would have to be wired up. So it sounds like I was right. That's always good to hear.
Yep, you were right.
At the Allentown show, there was supposed to be a couple other bingos. Vic Camp was taking up a nightclub to give away. I hope that went well to a good home.
Yeah.
And there was a bikini, which is one that doesn't go up for sale too often, up there in the flea market. I wonder if that went to a good home too.
I haven't heard anything yet, but I'll let everybody know once I hear something.
Yeah, we'll find
Well,
out.
now today's the last day for Allentown, right? Did they close at noontime today?
I don't know.
I didn't know they were open at all on Sunday.
I stayed up the first time I went to Allentown. I was there for Sunday, and it was like,
Ghost Town?
yeah, I'm staying for this.
Okay.
Friday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Thursday, and all these shows. I think the setup night is the funnest because it's like a private, And
Well, you heard that Bruce Moyer had a hernia operation, and now he can't lift.
I know.
He go to the show.
I called him Thursday, and he's got like super security on his phones. His home phone, his cell phone. I couldn't get through the whole time, and so normally he calls me. He called me from Allentown last year. I think it was last year, because Bruce is. That's somebody we got to get on. You ought to get on, man. He's EM guy like crazy. But apparently the Allentown Pinball Show picked Kentucky Derby Day to be on there. And Bruce is a horse racing guy, man. He knows that stuff. I don't think he's doing it anymore, but he called me up. He called me up during the last one. I don't even think we talked about pinball. We're talking about the Derby the whole time. He's talking about, and, he's a good storyteller. He pauses more than I do, though, but that's okay. Good guy.
Well, we joke about Bruce. We joke about Bruce. He's a great guy. He's a great guy to talk to because you won't have to worry about getting hoarse for talking too much, and but you better have time and you better have some earplugs because he will talk your ear off if you're not careful.
What you call, I love it. He's good, but he knows these games.
Yeah.
He knows all kinds of trivia about them, and you can just, it sounds like he's struggling to tell stuff, but when it comes out, it's jewels, man. He just says, just all these caveats of each game is built in there, and he operated these things for I don't know how long, And I don't think
Bruce Moyer, Bob Herberson in Texas, Jack Cook in Loveland, Ohio, they're all flipper guys that were in flippers when it was fun to be in flippers, and bingo guys. One guy, Neil, I can't think of his name, Bob Nelson, who's dead now, Phil Hooper, Alan Marriage, Dennis Dodell, Butch Glotta, Dick Gerlitz out in Seattle, Washington, Paul Coynes down in Louisiana, who's dead now, myself, Bobby Borden in Marshall, Pennsylvania. These are all guys that knew bingos back in the day.
Now, Alan, was he an operator? Alan Mirage, was he an operator? That's what I thought.
He was an operator technician, but he's a neat guy. He's a really neat guy.
And he had a bunch of games. He sold a container or two to, I think, Chris Howard over in Britain.
Yes, he did. I saw pictures of some of the games that were created, and a huge number of really what I would call nice high-end Magic Screen games from Circus Queen up on through Silver Sales. He sold a whole container to those fellows out there. I was kind of sorry to see that, but at the time he did it, there was absolutely no market here in the States for him. And that's the problem.
Well, that's Dennis with his 150 games, or to move. Yeah, that's a lot of stuff. Now, Joe Shop out in Utah has got a bunch of games, but he's parting out stuff. I don't know. I get to call him and see if he wants to come on his show. You ever talk with him, Jeffrey? He's a real nice guy.
Can you think of his name? I know a guy out in Utah. But
Joe Shop? Or
no,
Shoppy?
I
can't remember the E
guy I
pronouncing.
knew out there was a guy named Ted Salverson, and I think he's dead. He was out in South Dakota, not Utah. I'm sorry, he was in South Dakota.
See, Nick, everybody's dying off, man. You got to get this stuff out there and figure out how to archive it so we don't lose all this crap like we did on Old Binger's forum. And that said,
I mentioned earlier in the call this fellow Tony Bricado, who I knew, and when I was first starting out in this hobby back in 1977, and I had just gotten my first Lido, and I was having a hell of a time getting a decent schematic for it because it wasn't back then. Wasn't like it is today, where you could call somebody and there was always somebody out there you could get stuff from.
Right.
So I called Bally on Belmont Avenue in Chicago. They were still in business then. And I told that lady what I wanted, and she said, well, I don't know. We don't do those machines. I said, I know you don't. But I said, I was just hoping maybe there was somebody who could maybe go into your archive or something and maybe help me out. Well, she said, let me put you in touch with this guy. So this fellow, Tony Bricado, comes on the phone. And we're talking. And he says, who are you? Where are you? What are you doing? What do you got? And so I told him what I had. And at the time, I had a Showtime, I had this Lido, and I had my Yacht Club. And he said, you don't have a Cypress Gardens, do you? I said, no. I said, I don't. But I said, I know that game. I said, it's a great game. It's very similar to Showtime, but it's got some different features. He says, I was the lead designer on Showtime working directly for John Hooker. I was the lead designer. Hooker gave me the specs for what he was planning on doing, and I designed it and created it. He says, Cypress Gardens was my game. I said, wow, So I'm thinking I'm talking to royalty.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
So we get to talking. He says, well, what do you need? I said, I need a schematic and manual for a Lido. He says, I don't know if I've got one or not, but he says, I'll tell you what. He says, I'm the foreman here in the shop, and we don't do anything with bingos, but he says, I know I've got some boxes of stuff, and give me your address, and I'll send you what I can. Well, I said, what are these stuff? He says, it's stuff that's just here. It'll get thrown away anyway. He says, I'll send it out to you. So he sent me blueprint copies of Lido schematic, Key West schematic, 10 or 15 other schematics, manuals. I couldn't believe it. And I mention that because when I got to know Gary Marshall, the rocket scientist, I told him the same story. He says, I know Tony Bricado. He says, I know his wife. I know his kid. He recently passed away. I knew where he was. He says, I actually went down and met him. I thought, God damn, it's a small world.
I love it.
Go ahead.
I say I love it. And you're talking about Key West. Now, didn't you tell me something about a box of Key West back glasses one time?
Yes, what I told you was I hooked up with a guy in Athens, Georgia. He had, very similar to what Dennis Dodell's talking about, he had boxes from Wico, W-I-C-O. They used to be real big in aftermarket and new old stock stuff back in the day. And he had Wico produced new old stock back glasses for Key West and Cypress Garden that had never been on games.
Wow.
And he also said that he had games, glasses for Bikini, Silver Sails, Golden Gate. So I told him, this was on a Monday, I'm talking to him on a Monday night. I told him, I said, I want some of those glasses. I said, what will you sell me? Well, he says, I can sell you Key West and I can sell you Cypress Gardens. I said, I'll take them. I said, I'll be down there tomorrow. This is on Tuesday. And I hung up the phone. I told Carol, I said, pack a bag. We're going to Georgia. This is 8 o'clock at night. Pack a bag. We drove all night. Get down there. We I called my cousin. We went to my cousin's house, who lives in Buckhead. Carol and I, and got there. We got there about maybe 11 or 12 o'clock in the morning. So we had some coffee. Carol went to bed. I drove down to Athens, Georgia, which was about 50 miles east of where my cousin lived. Met with this guy. I bought 3 Key West back glass, and I bought 1 Cypress Gardens back glass. And I sold the 2 Key West back glass, and I kept 1 for myself, and I kept the Cypress Gardens for myself, because by this time I had a Cypress Garden in my collection. And I went and called this guy back, and I said, what else have you got? He told me. I said, all right. So I said, I'm coming back. So 2 months later, I go back. I make a date with him. And he's telling me that I can buy silver sails, a Golden Gate, a bikini, a Lido, a can, some really nice stuff. I can buy all this stuff. So I take $3,000 in cash I got in my pocket. And I'm going down to buy back glass. And I get there, and the guy's leading me. He's stringing me out. Because the first time I went to his apartment, and I got the glass. He had the glass in his apartment. So the next time he says, well, we got to go down to the warehouse. So, well, you knew I was coming. Why don't you have the glass here at the house? Oh, I've been busy, blah, blah, blah. So I get down there. So I'm sitting in this parking lot waiting for him to get there. So I'm thinking, I don't like the look of this. I got a lot of money in my pocket. So I get my knife out. I've got it open. I said, just in case somebody strange comes up, they'll get a taste of the door of the car, and they'll get a taste of the end of my knife. I'm not going to take any chances. So he gets there, and I said, okay, what have you got? Well, all he had was 1 bikini glass that he could sell me, but he had a Golden Gate glass there. I said, well, that's one of the ones you promised me. I'll take that one too. No, he says, I sold that to somebody else. I said, well, you promised it to me. No, he says, I had another one for you, but I can't find it. And then he goes and he finds this one crate that's water damaged. So there's a Lido and there's 2 or 3 cans, but there's newspapers in with the glass, and the newspapers fused to the back side of the glass, not the front side that you could, where the black paint is. So they're ruined. You can't.
Yeah.
So I ended up taking 1 bikini back glass, and that was it. And it really upset me. I later found out that this guy had taken orders from people off the internet, off eBay, whatever, and then skipped town and took all their money.
Ooh.
Whoa.
So I was lucky that I got what I got.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't the story I was talking about, but the other one I was talking about was somebody found a crate of. I thought it was.
Oh, you talking about with a pink flip off them?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
That was Dick Gross' story. He told. We were talking on the phone one day. This was a long time ago, and he said, I'm heartbroken. I said, what's up? He says, I've got a whole crate of brand new Key West backlets. Never been on game. From Ballard. She says, I opened the crate. I took each of the back glass out and I lifted them out. They looked dry. They looked fine. He says, I went down the next day and every speck of paint fell off the glass.
What?
He says, I couldn't believe it. He says, I had them in a dry room. I just took them out. As soon as the air hit them, the paint fell right off of them. I never heard of that.
I ain't either.
That's terrible.
Usually, it's the
sudden change in temperature. Yeah.
So, how about that crap? You never know. Cool.
What's your favorite machine to work on? Just as far as flipper, bingo, what have you, anything.
I really like to work on all games. Gut leads are the most difficult because the relays, as you know with Gut lead electromechanicals, the relays are all what I call short stroke.
Yes.
They have little short switches, and they have a normal relay pull on the Gut lead is about at the most a quarter of an inch.
Yeah.
And you've got single pole, double throw. And they do everything. You've got break before make. You've got make before break, and then you've got where the switch where a switch will be closed and both switches are open, and then the next switch goes. I don't know what they actually call that, but they're very hard to adjust.
I agree.
When you get a gut lead machine that hasn't been repaired. The one that's the worst is the AX relay, which is the reset relay. If you don't have that AX relay set perfectly, that game will not work.
Mm-hmm.
Will not work. The second worst is United Bolt and the United ball bowlers or short volley bowlers because the screw reels tend to get gummed up. Back in the 50s, they all used 3-in-1 oil to lubricate those wheels, and now that 3-in-1 oil has turned into putty.
Yeah. Yeah, that's...
You use WD-40, and so many people don't like that. I don't use it. Yeah, but it's not oil, it's water displacer. And so I don't know any more than that about it. Say it again.
Here's the trick with WD-40. If you're going to use WD-40, and I'm not an advocate of WD-40, but I do use it. And when let's say you're going to clean contacts. If you're going to use WD-40, you spray the WD-40 on your file and you wipe the file with your fingertips. Then you clean the contacts. If you're going to use WD-40 to clean your screw unit, you take your whatever grit emery paper or wet dry emery paper you spray the WD-40 on the emery paper. Then wipe the rivet points on the contact with the wet emery paper. Then take a paper towel and wipe it off.
Okay.
You don't have to get all the WD-40 off, but you wipe it off enough so that it's not running because WD-40 is conductive.
All right. Now that said, this sounds a lot like sharpening a knife with an oil stone. You use oil on the stone. This is to collect metal shavings when you sharpen a knife, so they don't clog up the stone. Is this why you're doing that on a file?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, exactly the same. And the trick is you don't spray the WD-40 on the contact because it runs down, and WD-40 is conductive.
Yeah.
And WD-40 does leave a residue, so you got to kind of wipe it off. But if you spray it on the file, you don't have to worry about it. Spray on the file, you don't have to worry about it.
Well, I use 3-in-1 oil on my games because that's what I got a can of, and I've had it forever. But the better thing to use.
Generations from now, when somebody's looking at that game, they'll be swearing at you because where the hell did he find 3-in-1 oil so he could turn the putty on my game?
I'll be dead. I don't care.
I know you'll be dead. Damn it, they're talking about me again.
They don't know what I went through to get it where I got it. Now, the better oil to use on all these steppers and that type of thing, I guess mostly the steppers with the spiders, is gun oil. Gun oil is stickier. It doesn't run.
Wouldn't that attract more dirt though?
I don't know. No more than any other oil, I wouldn't think. Okay. That said, I don't know about wax. Wax is a great lubricant for stuff like you got a sticky window. You can't slide your window up and down. You just put some wax on it. Hey, it's amazing. It works. I use this on tools in the cabinet shop and stuff too.
That'll let it move, but it won't let it conduct.
Correct. That would be why then.
Yeah.
But gun oil clings better. Doesn't run, puddle like that.
I use 3-in-1 myself, but I just use a drop or two. And my theory, and this is just a theory, is that if I play the games and keep those steppers moving, then it'll prevent that stuff from gumming up.
That's true.
And also,
WD-40 gums up is because it sits idle and ages, and then it's solid. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
And it's I fixed up a game from the 40s, and they used Vaseline. Now that stuff hardens into rocks.
Petroleum based.
I've never seen that, but I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
The other thing you don't ever want to use is don't ever use steel wool to clean your units.
Pulls all the contact off, huh?
I use it.
No, the little fibers from the steel wool.
Oh, yeah.
Find their way in between the rivet points, and you can't see them, and you can't get rid of them.
Yep.
And it's impossible to get them out once they're in there.
Yeah.
Rare earth magnet would help. I use a Dremel tool with a wire wheel attachment for cleaning.
Even that's dangerous.
Yeah,
I
use
that too once off, but even that's dangerous.
And those little things go all over the place.
Yeah.
And I go through with the rare earth magnet.
Your best bet is to use wet dry 600 or 400 grit emery paper and a contact file. Now the flexible files, the Steve Young cells in his little kit, those are really good. but on certain contacts, they don't have enough abrasion to get the really bad carbon off, especially if you got a contact that's fitted.
Yeah, I've had a lot of trouble with those flex files not cleaning enough. They wear out immediately. Yeah, and they leave junk behind. A lot of junk.
Well, it looks to me like it's just freaking sandpaper now.
Yeah.
Garnet sandpaper. I'm a cabinet maker, for those that don't know. Garnet sandpaper is used for finishing wood. They use garnets. Garnets are used because they are very brittle. And the garnet will break off, leaving a sharp edge again, so you get more life out of your sandpaper. And these flexible files look very much like that to me. That said, the silicone carbide. That could be the wrong word. Anyway, there's different sandpapers for different things. Emery board, emery paper, like you mentioned, and there's another one that I use in finishing. For finishing, it doesn't gunk up when you're sanding finish on wood. So that's it.
Talk about emery paper. I like the you can get emery paper both cloth back and paperback. I tend to prefer paperback. For some reason, the cloth back seems to leave a lot of residue behind, just like what you're talking about with your sandpaper. I don't know why.
Yeah.
And and then there's some mesh back stuff that has a vacuum, so you can put on a vacuum, HEPA-Vac. That's a bunch of different stuff. But all that's just, the idea is just get your pinball. If it's an electromechanical pinball machine, you can get it working, you can keep it working, but once in a while you got to get in there and
clean something, adjust
fool
something.
with it. Yeah. And it's all that way.
How many times have you started work on an electromechanical pinball and there's about 15 things that don't work, and you just basically run balls through it and play, and all of a sudden there's only 6 or 7 things that don't work. 10 of the things all of a sudden started working. That epitomizes exactly what you're saying.
Yep.
The game likes to be used.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm with you. I wish I had more girlfriends like that.
You can say that, but the trouble is if you had girlfriends like that, they'd get tired of you because they said, this man can't keep up.
Oh, God, it was funny. Back after I got divorced, when I got divorced, I was pretty much of a male slut, and I come out.
You bitch.
I got a feeling this stuff will be edited out, but some of it. I was boinking 3 or 4 girls. Most of them worked at banks. Not that I had that much money, but
So you were even depositing.
I come after work one day.
Good depositor. I like that. You have a friend in banking.
Oh shit! I came out to my car after work one afternoon, and there's a card, like a Hallmark card, tucked underneath of my windshield wiper. And I got in the car. I said, "Oh man, I got a ticket!" And I go out there and I open it up, and it's a Hallmark card, and I open it up, and the front of the card says, "I've had it with you," and I'm like. Oh no, because one of these girls, I let them all know I was seeing somebody, so I didn't tell them I was boinking all of them, And this card on the front of it says, "I've had it with you." And you open it up, and it said, "And I loved every minute of it." It wasn't signed. I don't know who sent it, man. And so it's like I see all these girls, and I didn't know who to thank. I had to play that one.
The answer is you just gotta have your dick bronze, that's all.
And so I smoothed my way out of it. That worked pretty good, but that was so funny. I don't know what the hell reminded me of that story.
Well, guys, how we doing? We about wrapped up, or was there some other questions we didn't get to, Nick, that you wanted to ask? Or?
Yeah, really, I just wanted to let people know how to get in touch with you. If you're taking on work, how they can get in touch.
They can email me. My email is my last name Lawton _, which is a shift dash. My first name Jeffrey at yahoo.com, and that's Jeffrey, that's Jeffrey, at yahoo.com, and they can send me an email. The only thing I ask is if somebody does send me an email, I'm very particular. Make sure that they put in the subject matter who they are and the fact that it's a pinball issue, because every message that I get like that, the first thing I do is I move it to the spam folder before you even open it up, and then if it's questionable, I won't reply. If I get a message that I don't know who the person is, I'll tell them out. Who are you? I won't say anything more about it other than that. And but I do respond to emails, and I do work for people literally all over all over the country, and I try to help people whenever I can. I don't know everything there is to know, but in many cases I can at least get a person to where they can either solve their problem or get it to the point where they can get a local repairman along with my help and get the problem fixed.
Mm-hmm. And so do you recommend that people call you first or email?
If it's a blind call, somebody who's never talked to me before, I prefer an email.
Okay. Fair enough.
And as I get to know the person, then I can give them my phone number. I mean, my phone number is available if you go up on any internet white pages and look up Jeffrey Lawton, Cincinnati, Ohio. My address and phone number will come up. It's not secret. I don't. I'm not hiding myself. I am easily available. And I do try to help anybody I can.
Well, very good. And
if I have, and if a person rubs me the wrong way, which happens from time to time, they will know. I will tell them. Subtlety is not a virtue with me.
Fair enough. And is there anything you'd like to leave listeners who might be thinking about making their first bingo purchase? Any words of wisdom?
Have a game in mind that you knew in your youth that you really want, because that's the game you remember. And when you find the game, try to get one that's working as best as it can. You can find out when you talk to a person whether they're a serious seller or whether they're just unloading junk. And most anybody can tell that. But if you find the game, buy the game. There is always somebody out there who can help you get it working.
I think what Nick means is, we're trying to get new blood in the hobby, like Nick is. And he's trying to inspire, some other younger guys. So,
So if you're going to ask me, what is it about bingo that really floats my boat, so to speak?
Mm-hmm.
The answer is very simple. When you play a bingo game, no two games are the same. And I'm not talking about different name games. I'm talking about when you walk up to a sea isle and you put a coin in that sea island, or you put a number of coins in that sea island, and you build up a game that you're ready to play. And you play that. The next game you play will be totally different than the one you just played.
Mm-hmm.
And the next game you play will be totally different than the one. In other words, no two games are the same. And the second thing is, you are not competing against a programmed format to make a winner. You are competing against that game. You either make the numbers or you don't. It's as simple as that. So it's just like playing golf. If you're gonna be a good bingo player, you know how to shoot the ball, you know how to bounce the ball, and you have some finesse in your play, which is the same thing a good flipper game player has. But you don't have the added flexibility of having something to shoot the ball back up the play field. You get one chance to make it, and you either get it in the hole you want or you don't. And 90% of bingo is playing defense.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to make the hole you make, but you're trying to keep out of the holes you don't want.
Right. Well, thank you very much.
So that's what I would say about bingos. Every game is unique. No two games on the same game is going to be the same.
Agreed. Well, thank you very much, Jeffrey, for your time, and
My pleasure.
I look forward to talking with you at some point here in the future, and I really hope to see you at York this year. It's
Yep.
It's on my 10-year anniversary, though, so I'm not sure if I'm going to make it or not.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my one a year.
Yeah, you won't see him.
But
I enjoyed speaking with you both, and of course, there's going to be some stuff you have to edit out, but that's fine.
Yeah.
It was a good fun morning, and I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And,
all right, partner. I'll talk with you soon. Okay.
Bye now.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Jeffrey's books are Bally Bingo Pinball Machines and Bally vs. United, The Bingo Pinball Wars. These books are available at Amazon, or you can buy them direct from Jeffrey at the York Show. I look forward to York every year, and part of that's because of the interesting bingos that Jeffrey brings. He always brings 2, and they're always really fun players. Good show games, as he says. So, thank you again for listening. My name again is Nick Baldridge. You can reach me at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com. You can find us online at foramusementonly.libsyn.com. And you can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Casts, via RSS, or on Facebook, or on our website. Thanks again for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.